I don't know what day it is. Tuesday. I got a mask on my ear.
Tuesday,
It's Tuesday.
January 26th.
So January 26th. Kevin's on vacation. So we've subbed him in for what I lovingly referred to Chris as my arch nemesis. So whenever I tell you folks about, hey, send me an email, and if you're complaining, you should. I should go on Instagram. If you're complaining, spell it KRIS.
Yeah, then I get it.
Yeah, then he gets it. So any of your hate mail has gone to this guy, which I don't know. For me,
you get a lot.
For me, he's there. I don't know where he is on the rest of it. So, but so today, it's Tuesday. Japanese Knife 101. Oh, Charminator's joined us. That's fun. We've got Minority Report Eatery down in New York is watching us on Instagram. So some fun friends. But Japanese Knife 101 is Knifewear's kind of several times a week Ask Me Anything. So we can talk about, we generally have a bit of a topic that we try to at least get the conversation rolling with. But we often, you're trying to pick out a new knife. Are you trying to, you got a knife that's giving you a hard time. You want to know a better way to sharpen it. All kinds of stuff. So whatever you've got, food. Chris as well was a chef in a former life.
Yep.
And we've got, I would say our opinions often align, but we got different ways of doing things. So if if you're curious about that, by all means, whatever you got. Oh, Sergio showed up with some questions today, so that's great. So, but don't be shy with them. If you've got any questions, we will get to them as quickly as possible. But what were we going to talk about today, Chris? What was I can't remember.
Children,
like how to cook them.
Yeah. Oh, man, I worked in so many kitchens where the topic of discussion was the best way to confit a baby before I had kids.
Can't really talk about that as much anymore.
It's dark in kitchens. It's dark.
Yeah.
I actually, before I ran over here to join you, I had a gentleman in the shop who was looking to add his second knife to his collection because he didn't want his kids touching his carbon steel knife. And so he was getting a stainless steel petty, which I thought was great because, having something small that kids can handle, that if they don't wipe it down when they're done, it won't rust on them and it's easy to take care of. And I see the Takamura logo behind your head, and that's exactly what he got. He got himself a little Takamura 130 petty, which I think is great. Nice. I might have recommended it because I have one that sits on my cutting board at home all the time.
Yeah. That's the. So Adrian's asking who's the new guy. So this is Chris Armitage. Chris is the manager.
Hello,
I guess
Adrian.
you know what? We always just kind of jump in and we don't ever say who we are or what we do. I think everyone just knows who Kevin is because it's kind of hard to come across Knifewear and not have heard of Kevin.
Yeah.
But so. That Chris.
This Chris
is that one. Yeah. Chris Armitage is the manager of the Edmonton store. He's actually the guy who hired me.
Yep. A million years ago.
A million years ago when I had more hair at the time. It's kind of kept falling out now.
He keeps complaining about having hair.
Yeah, I'm catching up.
Shut his mouth. Yeah.
I'm catching up.
Not even close. Not even close.
So we've got we've got stores right across Canada: Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Ottawa. I'm in Ottawa. Chris is in Edmonton, and then we've got the website, and that's like kind of the store everywhere. That's like Knifewear Galactic, I think is what we call it. Yes, Adrian, he's the other Chris at knifewear.com.
Yes. Chris with a K at Knifewear.
The one who gets all the hate mail.
Yeah.
So
if you got complaints about Lordy, send them to me. I've heard them all before.
Yeah, he's probably shares your opinion, to be perfectly honest. But yeah, so today we're talking about children's knives. Back during the first lockdown, we actually did a couple of cut like a chef classes. That's what we would call our in-store knife skills. But we did them like Mike and I did it with some kids. Like I got a gaggle of children. I've got 3 kids at home. Chris has got a couple of boys at home.
We actually watched your guys live.
Oh, wow.
Great. Yeah.
And everyone had their fingers in the end.
Yeah.
Presumably. I didn't hear about it, so I presume you've got.
Yeah.
You
No,
don't have
as far as I know, my
nine-fingered
children
son.
still all have all their fingers. I haven't
When
seen
you
them since
when,
7, but
when you left the house this morning, there were 20 fingers attached to 2
between the
sons.
2 of them, yes.
So, but I think it's a good one. I've got 3 kids. 2 of mine are, quite my kids are older. I've got a 6-year-old, a 10, and an 11. The 11-year-old, I don't like having him in the kitchen. He's not particularly helpful, and he likes to wreck my stuff. But the 6 and the 10-year-old are much more keen to help. They've each got their own kitchen knives. One is fancier than the other because one got one when there was only one of them, and the other one got one when there was 3 of them. So, Lisa Short is in Ireland. Loves Japanese knives. I've got one, but someone borrowed it and then forgot to return it. I don't suppose you're a cook, are you? Because lots of people like to borrow my shit when I was a cook and then forgot to return it. Where in Ireland are you, Lisa? I lived in Ireland for a year. I was a cook in Ireland, so that was fun. I don't remember much of it. And I actually, you know what, Chris? I lost a ton of weight when I lived in Ireland because all I did was drink cider and walk places.
Yeah, that checks out.
Yeah, I was very I lived 45 minutes outside of this little town on the west coast of Ireland. And I just kind of made it my habit. I would walk into town every morning to check my email. And I would I didn't have a computer or anything. So I went to this, there was a pub that had a little internet cafe. And I would do that every morning. I would walk in, I would walk 45 minutes there, have something for breakfast in the pub. And then I would check my email, have a coffee, walk back, and then eventually go to work. So you're in Killarney. So I lived in Westport, up in County Mayo. That's where I live. Well, that's cool. Well, we'll have to get you a new Japanese.
Yeah, there's a website that has a whole bunch of them. Knifewear.com. They ship to Ireland.
They do.
They do
ship. I have on good authority that they'll ship a knife to you in Ireland. So yeah, talking about our kids. I don't know. You grabbed a knife. I did. One there.
I actually grabbed 3 because they come in handy colors. Hold on.
Oh wow! You're prepared. You're more prepared. You're gonna make.
You told me to be prepared.
That's true. Because if you're prepared,
this is a Tajiro children's knife, the Kinder knife. I'm gonna open it up. Hold on, there's a staple in it. This is where I hurt myself because there's a staple involved.
Oh, Kevin. Hey, Armitage, Kevin just joined us on Instagram.
Oh, we gotta say bad things about him so that he gets angry and talks to us because he's not supposed to be working.
Yeah, if we talk trash about Kevin, then he'll send us a message and then he'll get in trouble for communicating us about work.
The kid's knife is great because it's actually sharp. It's got a wicked edge on it, but the edges are rounded. And I don't know how many knives I've rounded edges off because people poke themselves, but this is where you get that accidental little jab, and it's great for little hands. We've got one of these at home. I've got a 3 and a 6-year-old who love playing in the kitchen. The 3-year-old doesn't care so much for chopping vegetables because he figures he's got to eat them afterwards. So he's more of into making cookie dough because you get to eat that. But the 6-year-old, up until recently, has been very helpful in terms of doing prep. And I think that the sooner you get them going at it, as long as they're supervised and I stand right over top kind of and stand behind them. They also eat better if they make it. I don't know what it is about them putting their hands on it. They actually are interested in tasting things then. Yeah,
there's a little bit of pride associated with it, right? And they kind of know. So that my oldest he's on the spectrum, and so one of the things that we talk about at my house is because textures and just kind of him being in the know is really, really important. I break it down for him. This is exactly what I put in it. And sometimes I leave things out, if I don't think it's going to matter. If I told him there was onions in it, no matter how big or small I cut them, he's gonna try to pick them all out. So I just leave that part out, but it's I find like the few times that I've had him help. So he did one of the cut like a chef classes with me, and I could have fucking killed him because he just like thought about Bugs Bunny, and he saw me with my honing rod, and I gave a few swipes on the honing rod, and worse, man, he grabbed another knife and rubbed two of them together. It was I could have killed him. Like there I am on the on the friggin' on a Knifewear video, and here's my son with like two knives, just
banging them together.
Oh, it was. But the
it's
point
a good thing you don't have a temper.
Oh no, I'm not. I don't have a temper at all.
You're a nice, calm, cool, collected guy.
Yeah. I save up all week for these free 2-hour sessions with you guys. This is me on my best behavior. Yeah. So you guys watching a video, which is sad. But but I found like even like having them, because you pick two, right, when you're cooking, and it's a really good opportunity for kids to try stuff. Like, so tomatoes are a big one in my house. Only 2 out of 5 of us will eat a raw tomato. Don't know what it is. I've heard that one before. Some people just don't like them, but I find cherry tomatoes are a great job for a kid. Like just cutting a cherry tomato in half with a sharp knife. Like there's no fancy technique. There's no getting your fingers in the way. And they'll pop a few in their mouth as they go. So I got the 6-year-old that one time to eat a couple cherry tomatoes, but she didn't spit them out. The best line in my house these days is, "I don't like it, but I'll eat it," because Chris will get mad.
Yeah, you gotta scare them into it a little bit. We've been doing the I'm gonna put 3 things on your plate, and you have to finish 2 of them.
Oh, that's a good move. I've always kind of subscribed to the no thank you portion.
Yeah,
where it's like a bite of it, just like, you got to try it. I worked really hard on it. The big thing that I tell the kids, I'm like, look, I used to be a chef, okay? And for me to make macaroni and cheese for someone, it would cost them $15 each. Yeah. Okay? I'm doing this to you for free. I made the same thing for you. So if you're not going to eat it, I'm going to start charging you like the market rate.
That works for my 6-year-old because he's obsessed with watching YouTube gamers and finding out how much money they make. I'm like, well, you don't have a job. You couldn't afford my cooking right now. You don't even pay rent.
yeah, you're just out. So we did have a couple of questions come in as we were chatting. I don't know. Let us know if the format, if you guys have noticed the format being any different. We are trying a different platform today. On my end, it's actually working really well. I've got everybody's questions and comments in one spot. I don't have a bunch of windows open, but if it's a pain for you, let us know and we can work on that. But we've got, where was it? Someone had asked me, Sharminator had asked about a quick single bevel knife sharpening explanation. I will happily do that. I'll grab a single bevel knife and kind of show you a bit of the stuff. There was quite a bit of conversation going on in the comments here about those kids' knives.
Yeah, here.
So they don't have a tip.
No, it's just round.
Yeah, and a couple of other blacksmiths do that. Well, like the Moritakas used to make one. That's what I've got one of those for one of my kids. But essentially, you could do it with any knife. Yeah, Mecky's handed me. I got the pink one here. But yeah, and the heel too. Because where do you cut yourself most often? Right. It's on the tip or the heel. Like it's
right there.
It's there. It's almost never the actual edge of the knife. I don't know. Maybe I've just been real lucky. But yeah, these things are $36. They're made out of good steel. They're like molybdenum vanadium. So it's the same steel you'd find in a Mac or a Global, something like that, And it's approachable to kids. It's not too big. To be honest, it's approachable to anyone with small hands or someone who's a little bit nervous in the kitchen. You don't have to be a child to use it.
I brought one of these too.
Ah, those are handy.
Cut resistant glove. If you throw this on the one hand and then you tell them the knife never leaves this hand, and you got this on the other hand, you're just about invincible at that point. And they're pretty small and they're stretchy. So you can slip that over and then you don't have to worry about kids chopping off a finger.
But then, yeah, so it's it's inexpensive. So if it gets dropped, you're not going to care as much, you know, like you can kind of like, so Chris was telling me earlier this afternoon, he bought a Takeda for one of his kids. He got a Takeda Ko Nikiri. So whenever you see the word Ko, that means small, right? Ko means child or baby. So we might even actually call that like a Ko Santoku.
Yeah.
But a Takeda Ko Nikiri is only like, it's about the size of a business card with a handle on it. It's perfect.
Yeah, I think it's a 135 maybe.
Yeah.
I wish I had it here, but it's awesome.
I'm gonna grab. Oh, look at that! I've got like Meki can hear me in the background, so he's been delivering things. So here, let's talk about sharpening a sim. This is like the Chris Lord version of sharpening a single bevel. It's not the in-depth, ultra nerdy Naoto explanation of it. I only know like 3 of the terminology that you would need, and he can write poetry about it. So when we say, so like just so you can see, a single bevel knife is sharpened differently. There's a bit of different geometry, right? So when we've got a Japanese or a standard knife, a ambidextrous knife, it's sharpened so that the edge of the knife looks like, it's more like that, right? But a single bevel knife, one side is kind of concave and the other side kind of kicks out a bit, right? So my hands aren't doing a great job, but it's obviously not even. So what we want to do is the majority of the sharpening happens by laying this side of the knife flat on your stone. We're going to pretend the strop is a stone. This is a brand new knife. I'm not going to sharpen it. Lies flat on the stone, and you go back and forth, and you're correct, Shermanator. You do get a burr on the concave side. So what you do is kind of back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You get the burr. That's perfect. The diagram is much better than my hand. And then you lay it flat on the other side and give it a swipe or 2 to get the burr off. Right? You don't need to like, but you don't, one thing you don't want to do is you'll give it a little bit of, a little bit of height, like after you've already kind of thinned it all out. But on the back side, the concave side, you never want to give it any height. You'll just screw it up. So have at it, give it a go. If you need help, this is as good a time as any to mention that Naoto, we've actually changed the name of Naoto's show. Have you heard about this, Chris?
No,
it's no longer Advanced Sharpening with Naoto. It's Naoto's Nerd Hour.
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
It is, yeah. So, and he was very happy to be called a nerd. He quite enjoyed it. We need to get him, what we need to get him is a little Bill Nye outfit. A little lab coat,
get him a
bow tie, and some goggles, like some safety goggles.
He's too cool to be that nerdy. He's one of the sharpest.
I know, but that'll be, yeah, he is. He's got one of those really cool, like, baseball jackets that are all embroidered and stuff. That if I wore that, I'd deserve a kick in the head. But it works
exactly. But he wears a jacket with a dragon on it, and it's just awesome.
Yeah. So we had Lisa was asking. So the kid's knife is 36 Canadian, and then this is a Tojiro Yanagiba I grabbed is $200. So yeah, the kids' knives are 36. You could buy a bucket of them. Yeah, you could buy a bucket of them. And Adrian's asking, what's the point of single bevel? Single bevel knives are the more traditional option. You would see them, for us living in Canada and the US, you would most often see them being used in a sushi establishment or somewhere that does that. So you've got 3 major shapes. You got the deba, the big fat thing. It's usually used for, I don't have one handy. A deba is used for, I'll grab one. It's for filleting a fish. They're usually a lot heavier, a lot thicker, because they're meant to be, you're hacking the head off of the fish or something. Look, I grabbed a really fancy one. This is one of those,
pretty one.
Yeah, the one with the dragon engraved in it.
Yeah.
So these guys are for filleting a fish. It requires a little bit of a different technique than what most of us might have learned in culinary school or working in a North American restaurant. But that's taking the fish off the bones. The next knife you would have is what's called a Yanagiba. Okay, and a Yanagiba is used for slicing the fish fillet. So it's not, this knife isn't great for filleting a fish. You could get by with it, but you're going to find it like kind of pulls a little bit funny because of the geometry.
And you're going to chip it on the spine bones all the time.
Yeah, and you're going to chip it on the spine. So, and then your last one is what's called an asuba, and that's more of a, it looks like a nikiri. It's rectangular, also single bevel. You use that for a lot of your veg prep. For that kind of the rotary cutting where you take the daikon or the cucumber and you hold the knife still and you spin the veggie and it just turns into a big long sheet of paper. That's you'd use an asuba for that. A lot of the time you would see a sushi chef using that to slice the maki rolls or whatnot. But those are the three major ones. They're the super traditional ones. I'm left-handed, so I don't own any single bevel stuff. I don't want to buy one just for the sake. I'm waiting for something cool to come through. Like that's what I look for every garage sale is like an Asuba or a Yanagiba that's like made like left-handed and it's not just kind of an afterthought. Like it's like, oh, I'll just make a lefty one for something. Like if there was like some like super cool like Kurochi or Damascus Yanagiba for lefties and it costs like $1,200, I don't care. I'd buy it. Like it's got
I got my first single bevel a couple of garage sales ago when we had that big box of the really inexpensive stuff that Mike found at, was it Tajiro? I can't remember where they were from. I don't even know what steel it was when I bought it because it was $65, I think. And I use it for slicing pepperoni all the time.
Yeah.
It's perfect for that, for slicing any kind of like firm charcuterie, nice and thin.
Yeah.
It's a fantastic little beast.
Yeah. And then what else do we got here? I'm going to try something else. Apparently, I can click on someone's comment and it'll show up on the screen.
Oh.
Yeah, let's see. Let's just see. Charminator says, oh, okay. Does that pop up on the screen? Get out.
Look at that.
Whoa. That's awesome. We could like click on, like if we're answering a question, we can click on it.
Yeah.
Is it up there the whole time? Oh, now I hide it.
And then you can hide it.
Guys, look at that. You know what?
That means if you say mean things, we can highlight you too.
Oh, yeah. If you start chirping me, like Uncle Greg, there was a guy, Uncle Greg came in. He was just ripping me up one day.
Well, you're an easy target.
I deserve it.
Yeah.
I deserve it. But just for the record, if we were not in a customer service scenario, I would give it right back to you. Just, you know. One day.
Lordy's very meek and quiet, and he never says a mean word about anyone.
No, I don't throw things when I'm drunk or anything. I'm very calm. Yeah. So here we go. Here, let's try it. Boop. Look at that. The Asuba circular cut is Katsuramuki. Oh, and look at this. Why don't we just kind of keep the train going with Adrian? Do you need that extra cut when cutting an onion? Of course you do, Adrian. Of course you do. Because if you don't do it, you're being a cowboy.
No, I'm a cowboy. I do it the Alberta way.
You know what the difference is? It's only necessary when the chef says it is.
That I will agree with.
Do you know what I mean? So there we go. You know what? If you're not working for me, I don't care what you do.
Ain't nobody paying me to cut onions anymore, so I do it however the heck I want.
If I'm paying you to cut onions and you're not putting that extra cut in, I'm going to call HR. You're getting a write-up. Because that's how you do it in restaurants. You just call HR. You have very polite conversations about people's performance.
You get a little slip in your inbox.
And then HR takes care of it. You don't kick over garbage cans or yell at people or swear at them or throw things at them.
No. Tongs are not for throwing.
No, neither are oyster knives.
No.
So, but here we go. Spoon Monkey, what are your, this is a very like behind the curtain question. What are your overall stock levels at the moment? Do the knives in the shop displays get sold on the site? They do. So the way that our, who's handling Kevin's dad jokes today, they're on vacation too. Thank Jesus. I
don't know. I've been studying geography and I learned a little bit about Switzerland.
He says that one every week. It is not new.
It's not new, but
that's not a new one.
Such a big plus.
I know. He probably paid you to say that.
Yeah, basically. Basically.
What I was saying was that, so say, let's pretend, because my store is closed right now, right? We're in the middle of a provincial lockdown. It's not news to a lot of people. We talk about it here and there. But then what happens is, so if you find a knife that you like on the website, and say you live in Ottawa and you want to pick it up in the store, you find a knife you like, our website pulls its inventory from all of the stores. So if it says that it's out of stock, it means no store has it, or their inventory screwed up. It's just sometimes an option. But what happens is you place an order online, it's going to go to wherever it is. Like wherever the knife exists, that's who's going to ship it out. So if you, for instance, if you wanted to buy a knife and pick it up in Edmonton, well, you pick out your knife online. It's like, I don't know, it's a Murata 210, just like this. This is a demo knife. You can't actually buy this. But what'll happen is you go to curbside pickup in Edmonton. Well, they don't have it in stock, so we're going to have to ship it. So that's kind of how it goes. And there's been a couple of nice shout outs here. AJ says, Masakaga Yuki was shipped out yesterday, but just arrived. 1 day shipping from you guys is great. Now that doesn't happen every day. That's just
normal.
No, but from Calgary to California. So DHL is we do a lot of our shipping, and this would apply to our friend in Ireland as well. We do the majority of our international shipping with a company called DHL, and they're very quick. Like it's generally I would say 9 times out of 10, it's cleared customs before it's even left the store. That 1 in 10 chance is where we get stuck at the border for a couple of weeks here and there. So it's usually pretty good. But here's a question just for you, Armitage.
The Western style handle question?
Yeah. Look at that. Let's put it up on the screen.
I like it. I like that question too, because I have very strong feelings about handles. There isn't one that I don't like, but I like specific ones for specific things. I'm a big fan of the Western handle on Tsujihikis. Okay. I don't know what it is about it, but there's something about the balance that just feels better. I think maybe because I hold it a little bit further back on the handle than I do with a chef's knife. I have chef's knives that are like, I'm a 240 guy like you guys. Yeah. But at home I've switched to 210s, and I've got just about every shape of handle in a 210. And I think an oval is probably my most used shape. I've got a 240 Hikari from a million years ago from Andrew's that's got the oval handle on it, and I love that knife. And then I've also got a 210 that Akeda made a million years ago out of Algami Super. It was a prototype that I bought at a garage sale like 7 years ago, and it's an oval. So that's probably my favorite chef's knife handle. But then on petties, I really like the small thin handles, like the 120 on the Sugimori.
Yeah, that's what I was
The handle's way smaller than the rest, and I think the DP line have those small handles too. And if you're working it in your hand, it's just really easy to hold on to. So it really depends on what I'm using the knife for as to what kind of handle I like.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. Like I'll be honest, I generally, and I think everybody knows this, and that's why they directed it at you. I generally prefer a Japanese handle, and I'm less picky about the shape, to be honest, because I find very little of the knife is actually in my hand when I'm holding it. Like the handle, very little of the handle is in my hand, so I don't really notice that much. I've got a collection of octagonal, like my Nikiri has an octagonal handle, but then my a lot of my chef's knives have round handles. Like I use a Yokuma 210 at home. I've got a Kagura 150 and a Kagura 240. Those both have round handles, and those get a lot of use. You know what handle I do really like is the Masashi, like that little one, like almost that kind of half and half octagonal round one. What have we got here? Oh, we've got D-shaped handle on the Tsuji. Yeah. Oh, that's one that everyone gets kind of surprised that I like as much as I do because I'm left-handed. I have a couple Moritakas that use a D-shaped handle, and I I'm a huge fan of it. It fits really, really well in my hand. I'm gonna grab one just to show.
I've heard a lot of lefties say that they like the D-shaped handle on the Moritakas because it kind of sits on your finger pads when you hold
it. Right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're talking about with a D-shaped handle. And then in my right hand, that ridge fits right in in here, right in kind of the lines on your hand. If I put it in my left hand, like Chris said, the pads of my fingers, the pads of my fingers sit right on there. So this is the Yeti. I don't actually have it. I've got a really big version of this knife at home, but don't have this one. Maybe I should get it. Look at that. And then we'll just kind of go take the question away. That's fun.
I like it.
Instagram, Chef Haverco is what location am I at right now? I'm in Ottawa. So if you want, for those, there's a handful of people watching us over on Instagram. If you'd like to hear the other half of what's going on, like the part that's going on in my headphones, head over to YouTube, knifewear.com/YouTube, and you'll see a live video. You can do it on Facebook too if you're more comfortable there. We've got a live conversation going on with Chris Armitage, who's the manager of our Edmonton store, and we're just kind of talking knives and what you use them for and so on and so forth. But there was another, Haverco is in Calgary and has shopped there. So we got, I don't know how you feel about Edmonton, but he's wearing a Calgary Flames hat.
Calgary Flames colors, baby.
So he likes
my local butcher made it. There's only 2 of these hats in the whole world. I think Kevin has one and I have one. Because Corey the butcher decided to treat us to these beautiful red hats.
So what do you think about this one, Chris? What grit would you guys recommend for cutting meat? 1,000 or lower?
I would probably, it depends on the knife, but I would probably go higher. I know that the man that gave me the hat, Corey the butcher, uses a Tajiro DP boning knife all day, every day, 6 days a week. And we usually finish that thing when he brings it up for touching up at about 4,000. 8,000 for it is a little bit overkill because as soon as he's scraping it across the bone or something like that, it doesn't feel like it's 8,000. But 4,000 just feels good for longer, I think. I think for Western knives, like the R. Murphys that we have in the store, I usually finish those at 1,000, and they seem to do a pretty good job at that. They feel pretty good. I think it depends on how smooth you want your cuts to be. If you're going real fast and you're breaking down chickens and just ripping them apart, I think you just need something pokey on the edge. But if you actually want to slice them, then you want to have something that's a little bit smoother.
Yeah, and I can see that. So blank is saying, oh, wow, I heard, that's who asked the question originally. I heard you'd want something toothy. But here's a test for you. Next time you've cooked a steak at home, okay? Next time you've cooked a steak at home, use a serrated, like a kind of run-of-the-mill Canadian Tire steak knife, cut a piece off and chew it. The next piece you have, get a nice sharp knife and slice it. It is shocking how different, toothy will do it, right? Toothy will get through it. You won't have to fuss about it as much. Like it might give you a longer lasting edge when you're doing your butchery. But the difference you tell, it's the same thing as like cutting a carrot with a super sharp knife and using the dull one. You put it in your mouth, you can tell the difference, right? I had a good question over on Instagram that I think would be nice to just shout out to everybody. Our pal Haverco, I'm interested to see where you work, Chef Haverco, because I don't know my way around Calgary that well, but Armitage would here. What should I get next? They have a chef's knife and a utility, thinking a Nikiri, Santoku, or Kiritsuke. So I personally would add a Nikiri into that conversation because I think your chef's knife is going to handle a whole lot of stuff. Your Nikiri is going to do a great job at like green onions, most veggies, slicing herbs, that kind of thing. I almost find like, and I'll let Chris, you won't be able to hear Chris's contribution, but a Santoku is almost like the love child of a Nikiri and a Gyuto. So I think getting a Santoku, you got a little bit of overlap. getting a kiritsuke is almost like the love child between a nikiri and a gyuto. So because like depends on who made it. Chris is kind of like doing the head bounce. Depends on who made it. The Moritaka that I have, the kiritsuke, is very, very flat, and I use it as if I was using a nikiri. Some people just put that tip on the end to make it look badass. Essentially, a kiritsuke is going to work like your gyuto. So I would just go for the nikiri. That is the most different of what you have. Chef Haverco, well, maybe you should go over to Instagram or go over to YouTube. Just so they say, haven't gotten a kitchen job yet, only 15. And with COVID, he's going to wait before he's out. I say he, I don't know, sorry. Is going to wait to get the kitchen job. It's a lot of fun, but it's hard living. That is the most positive way that I can put that.
Yeah. I always ask new kitchen folks the same question. What do you do on Friday night? Because you don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
What do you do on the holidays? Because you don't do that anymore. And do you need all new friends?
Yeah, that's true.
Because it's great. Like I loved my 20s. And then my body started to hate me when I turned 30.
Yeah, cooking got hard at 30.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun before that.
Yeah.
But here, so when we're talking about the meat thing, Charminator is saying, wouldn't the ciabatta edge be perfect for meat? Then you get the best of both worlds. That's kind of the idea behind there. And so here, let's put that one up. I'm having a lot of fun with the new toys. So
I can tell.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's usually it's me.
Don't give Kevin control of the buttons when he comes back.
No. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. So when Charminator is talking about the ciabatta edge, that's something. So Takayuki Shibata is the gentleman who owns Masakage Knives. What else? He's got West Japan Tools. He's got the Tinker line. So by trade, previous to owning these brands, Shibata, or we generally call him, a lot of Knifewear staff will call him Shiba, because we're a little more informal with him. But the polite version is Shibata-san. But he was a knife sharpener before he got into before he started producing knives through blacksmiths and other manufacturers. So we've got 2 people in Ireland watching today. You see that?
Crazy.
You know what, Chef?
In Ireland.
Ireland is like 6 or 7 hours ahead of us.
Okay, so it's
you're just finishing up work. Well, where you'll have to tell us where you are in Ireland, because I was already talking about that I lived there for a bit, and that's fun. What was I saying? So a Shibata edge is something that Shiba's worked on, and I always screw this up. I think he sharpens the knife to 4,000 on one side, and then he sharpens the other side. He brings the other half of the knife. So like, that's a terrible knife to use as an example. So on this one, he would sharpen this side, bring it up to 4,000. Then when he does the other side, bring it up to 8,000. I think that's accurate. The reason why he does that is because it gives you one side is polished a little bit more. There's my buddy Chris is saying hello on Instagram. Hello, Chris. And so you get one side is polished up a little bit higher. So it gives you like kind of it gives you a nice all around edge. So if you're gonna slice a piece of fish or something, you can still pull that off, but it's not so smooth that it makes denser vegetables and such difficult. It's like, to be perfectly honest, we're splitting some pretty fine hairs by doing something like that. And you've really got to be like, you got to be one with your knife, I think, to really even tell the difference. I don't know.
Yeah, if you're not feeling it on a regular basis, and I mean like feeling it, it's probably imperceptible to your average home cook.
Yeah.
That being said, it's a huge advantage.
So I want to see. Oh, they're in Cork. Cork is where like all the good food in Ireland's supposed to be. I never made it to Cork because I have this bad habit of going places and getting jobs, and then I work like a dog for a year straight. Like I lived in Ireland for a year. I didn't leave. I didn't even go to Belfast. I didn't even go to Northern Ireland. The farthest I got from where I lived was a 4-hour bus ride. I went to Galway every now and again. Yeah, I'm not the kind of person you want to model your spare time after. But here's a good question, Chris. Bloop. What's your biggest knife-related regret?
Oh, that's an easy one. I didn't get my first Japanese knife until I'd worked in a kitchen for 7 years.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I had a chef. I left a job, and the chef liked me that time. The next time I left, he told me to leave. So, that happens sometimes. The first time I left, he liked me, and he bought me a knife when I left. And that was a game changer. I'd always been kind of stealing his, so I knew that they were better, but I was poor. And so I didn't think that it was worth it. And then I got one, and then I immediately bought a second one, like within weeks, because I got a little 180, and then I bought a 240 to go with it when I went to my next job.
Oh, sweet. A guy on Instagram, a buddy of mine named Sean Marsh, he was there on my first day on the job out of culinary school.
Oh.
Yeah. I don't know where he works now. He was working at the kitchen in Shopify for a bit. I don't know what he's up to now. He's a really nice guy, though. If you're living in Ottawa and you want to work for a good chef, you should look for Sean Marsh, because he's got the blend of like, he knows what he's talking about and he can tell it to you.
That's helpful.
That's not something that doesn't often go together.
No.
In the culinary world.
No, being able to translate it so that somebody else can understand is not necessarily a chef's forte all the time.
Yeah. Oh, what's this? I didn't mean to click on that one. But our friend in Cork is polishing up some knives and drinking some whiskey. That's nice. That's something I used to do on Sundays. Yeah, that's the thing about doing these videos, Chris. You do these videos more, and you can work. Kevin does it all the time.
Yeah,
I would too, except I don't drink very much right now.
No, I've got the important drink, the caffeine.
Oh yeah, that's what's in here. Yeah. I make a coffee.
On yours too.
I make a coffee and put it in the thermos, and then I buy a coffee on the way to work. That's my double move. See, so that's my like, I'm making a coffee, so like, oh, he's not gonna go buy a coffee. It's like a decoy coffee, And think about like 3 years ago, I didn't even drink coffee.
Oh, you're missing.
All right. What else we got here?
There's a new question from AJ. Do we miss any old ones?
I'm going through here now. There's a lot of talk about like our buddy Peter Brown. He lived in Ireland there for a little bit. He's kind of, they're shooting the shit. Dr. G says, oh, Dr. G is always good for the puns. I wish there were even more viewers from there.
Ooh.
So if we were wondering who was going to take care of that.
Yep,
I found
it's covered.
Yeah. DJ, I haven't even read this whole thing, but I'm going to put it up. It's interesting that you raised the question of different grit sharpening on the same knife. I wanted to ask Nalto in the last session about the sharpening technique, but didn't have the time. You should, because I think Nalto would do a better job of explaining it than I do. Nalto gets to read the books that are written in Japanese. And
I have a hard time with that.
Who can only speak Japanese. And I struggle even with English. So if you take away the alphabet that I understand and put in all these beautiful little painted pictures, it doesn't make any sense to me. So, but Nalto also has a lot of fun sharpening. That's a big part of it too. And I think Chris is more along my vein. And I think, Chris, Kevin, and I are all kind of similar in this. I prefer using the knives than I do sharpening them. But I do know that a lot of you guys like to sharpen them, and sharpening is a really big hobby for you. So I try to do my best with those questions, but they're hard for me. I'm not that smart. I became a cook because a doctor wasn't an option.
Yeah. Yeah, there weren't a lot of options, which is why I became a cook.
Adrian says won't be able to do that on $24 a week. That's right.
No more coffee for you.
Okay. Oh, Haverco joined us over on YouTube. Thank you. That's great, because now you'll get to. It's much better. If you're watching on YouTube, it just looks like a man talking to himself in a room. But if you're on YouTube or Facebook, you can see that I'm not super crazy. Just medium crazy. So I want to answer AJ's question, and then I'm going to talk about this $24 challenge that Adrian has brought up. So, knife rolls. Are knife rolls a good idea for storing your knives for home cooks with not a lot of counter space? I think so. If you got somewhere to put the knife roll, if you got a drawer, or maybe just up in a closet or something like that. Maybe you live with roommates and you want to keep it in your room so that
under your bed so they don't steal them.
You know what? We've actually got a customer here in Ottawa, a young guy who's almost on high school now, loves knives, loves cooking. I think he's more into the knives than he is the cooking. Like, I don't think this kid's going to become a chef, not like our new pal, Nate here. But so this guy has knives, and he keeps them in a roll under his bed. His parents have to come and ask permission to use the knife.
As it should be.
One thing that I will say about using a knife roll does not supersede the need for using a blade cover.
No.
Okay? If anything, you should try harder to have blade covers on your knives, because when you get them all rolled up, they can kind of clang against one another. But the thing I say about the knife roll or about the blade covers is they're as much about protecting you as they are protecting the knife.
Yeah.
Obviously, if you drop your knife and it's got a knife cover on it, well, you're probably going to protect the edge that way, right? But when you're going to put them away and you tuck them in, you want to make sure that you get one that fits. This one doesn't fit this knife. But because when you have it in your knife bag, that's the first day of culinary school, at least for me. We're all there and they said, okay, everyone open up your knife kits. This is your one shot to make sure that we haven't forgotten to put something in it. If you're missing a piece, tell us now, we'll get you one. So everyone's got their knife bags open. Half the damn room cut themselves on the knife, because that's where you're going to cut yourself. Is when you're reaching into the drawer, you're reaching into your knife bag, you're putting it away, you're taking it out, you're honing it. The amount of time, now, like, knock on wood, the amount of time that I actually cut myself using a knife is nowhere near the amount of times I cut myself grabbing a knife.
Yep.
So putting the blades on there, it's like, what we'll tell you, if you're in the store, we'll tell you like, oh, well, you want to cover your edge so it doesn't get knocked around in the drawer. I always mention the bit about the time I reached into the drawer and grabbed the knife by the wrong end, right? It's the same reason why you don't put knives in the dish pin. No one knows that they're there. So, and then we've got a couple good questions here. Holy moly. Two easy ones. Okay. Chris, what are your thoughts on custom handles?
I always like the way they look, but I've never found one that feels just right. And so there's no reason not to buy a knife just because it looks good. I definitely have more than one that I bought just because of the way it looks. But I always find that the knife handle that the blacksmith has chosen for their knife seems to feel better.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. It's like Kevin and I often get stuck talking about Fujiwara and his handles, right? Because a lot of people talk shit and say Fujiwara handles are too rough or there's gaps or whatever. I'm spending $700 on a knife. I want them to be perfect. The thing that we're not catching on to as, purchasers of the knife is that to Fujiwara, they are perfect.
Yeah.
Right? He does each one step like on their own. Like, I've seen him do it. Like, he forges the whole tang, there's no welding, there's no stock removal or whatnot, or very, very little stock removal. And so he's working with a very raw product. Like, even the bolster on the knife is still forged, right? So it's normal to find little bits along the end where like maybe a little bit of a gap or something like that. So yeah, as far as Fujiwara is concerned, they are perfect. They take the time to do them one at a time. There's nothing mass manufactured about a Fujiwara Mabaroshi or a Denka, right? And that's the one thing I find about Fujiwara is if you're in a store, and I know there's a lot of Fujiwara fans watching right now, if you're in the store and you pick up one and it feels perfect, you should buy it. You should buy it right then and there, because the next one might not feel the same. Right?
I have a 150 Denka Gyuto that Kevin talked me into buying because it had the ironwood handle on it. And it's great, but I'm still sad because the knife I was going to buy that day was a 150 Mabaroshi that just felt right in my hand. And those two knives, I love my Denka, but I wish I had the Mabaroshi too because it just felt different.
Yeah. So, Chris is saying over on Instagram, he loves, so Chris is a chef here in Ottawa. His Instagram handle is Mohawk Chef. Loves custom handles. Depending on the maker, they can add some definite function to an awesome blade. We've been getting some really nice handles from a fellow in the States. I think it's Real Sharp Knife is his Instagram handle. I screwed up, but he's the one making those really funky handles that you see on the Kobayashis. I know we just got a bunch of them in, so if that's your speed. And they're like an octagonal Japanese style handle. And he says, Chris follows up, I love the unique nature of Fujiwara handles. The Mabaroshi handle is awesome. And that's how he got the beautiful Santoku that I sold him. I am a bit of an enabler with some of my friends.
That'll happen.
It will happen. Charminator wants to know where to get a sword stand for his kitchen knives. Any chance where I could get one? Send one of us an email, Chris at knifewear.com. We'll talk to Naoto, and we've had them in the past. We can send us a message. We'll figure out when and if we can get one, how much it'll cost you, and let you know what you need to do. Nate, who is our young friend in Calgary, what is your favorite knife brand that we sell? It's a harder question than you think it is, Nate.
Yeah, that's like picking a favorite kid. Except most of the time I don't, have a favorite kid, but I always have a favorite knife. I'd point to the Masashis in the case more than just about anything else. And I think it's because you notice them more. There's just more sex appeal to those. And it doesn't hurt that he's kind of one of the cooler blacksmiths.
Yeah. Well, he's easy to get along with, right? Yeah. It's like you want to support your friends. In like most avenues, you want to support your friends, right? So like I've had the luxury, and you have too, we've had the luxury of hanging out with Masashi on several occasions. We got to watch him work. We got to interact with him. That is all just kind of icing on the cake of he makes an awesome knife.
Yeah.
Right. So I would agree. My newest knife, I did get that 240 Kuroshu for Christmas.
Nice.
So I own 2 knives from him. And I would agree with Chris. Masashi are some of my favorite knives to sell. He makes what? He makes the Kamuri, the Koi, the Shiroshu, and the Kuroshu all the time.
Yep.
And then he's always good for something funky around garage sale. He's been messing around with some single bevel stuff. He makes those white carbon Nishiji knives.
We've been getting a bunch of his Kiritsuki single bevels.
Oh, that's a nice knife.
And I might have to get one of those as my next single bevel, because every time I pick one up, they just feel really good.
I completely agree. It's so easy for me to sell a Masashi. I just feel good about it every step of the way.
Yeah.
Right. Ted has a good point. A lot of people aren't used to a Japanese handle as opposed to the Western handle. Very true. Very true. I find a big thing is when when you learn how to hold on to a knife properly, makes a big difference, right? Most professionals, you're not going to hold a knife like this, right? You're going to choke up on the knife, give it a bit of a pinch using your index finger and your thumb. And as soon as you get over that, you're not afraid of the knife, you're not afraid of holding on to it up here, you'll I don't know. I think that's the big thing for a lot of people. You don't notice the difference.
That's why I grabbed this. As soon as you teach people that pinch grip and they start holding it like that, I find that the Japanese handle really it's more of a counterweight than a handle. Like it's almost a misnomer because you don't handle it by the handle, you handle it by the steel like that. And once you get over that fact, one, it gives you more control over the knife. Yeah. It's easier to deal with it. And it takes, if you've got a big knife that seems a little bit intimidating, as soon as you choke up on it like that and you get over top, it doesn't feel like it's as unwieldy either. So it's just a matter of getting it into people's hands and trying it a little bit. and it doesn't usually take long to get over the fact that it doesn't feel like, you know, the yellow-handled Henkel.
Yeah. Yeah, it's got that little kind of lump on it that you
Exactly.
can't get your hand over.
Yeah.
This is really funny because it's only like Mecky and I in the store, and he's not allowed to come near me because I don't have my mask on. But the phones keep ringing. He's like on 2 phones. He's like a cartoon operator. It's pretty funny. And I don't know how many times it's been like coworkers of ours like calling, like looking for me, and it's like he's busy.
He's kind of busy right now.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I'm really enjoying it.
Do you need to have an office that's a former bathroom like I do, so you can just
Oh, nice. Yeah, and this is why someone earlier had asked if I could show some of the display cases.
Yeah.
I can't because I've turned this entire store into an office.
Yeah. I imagine you just have stuff everywhere.
Yeah, you know exactly what it looks like in here.
Yeah.
There's a deep fryer right over there. I brought a deep fryer in from home.
I didn't watch it live, but I watched you yesterday.
Yeah.
Frying up some chicken, and it made me hungry.
Yeah. So our friend Mika was by over the weekend. They picked up a Fujiwara. They bought a 240 Mabaroshi. I'm glad that you're enjoying it because he's got to come pick up a knife that we had just sharpened. I was going to ask him all about it. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. That's a beautiful knife. But here's a good one. Here's a good entry question for us. Any advice for newbie sharpeners? Terrified of messing up your knife because of angles are so off. The best advice I can give you, I'm not sure, I can't remember if you said where you live, but practice. Practice. Don't be afraid of screwing up your knife because there's nothing you can really do that we couldn't fix up. You know, you might scratch up the side of your knife real bad. I'm not one to mirror polish a knife. But my advice is practice. And what I tell people at the end of our sharpening class, or even new staff, anyone like that, borrow your mom's knives, borrow your neighbor's knives, any kind of Canadian Tire special, Henkel, Wusthof, any Western knife you can get your hands on, give it a go. Because you'll always make them better. You'll never make them worse. And just hold yourself, like kind of be critical of yourself while you're sharpening. But anyone is just going to say thank you. They're not going to give you a hard time. So that's my advice. And go slow.
Yeah. And if you find a cheap knife, we go to the wholesale club and you can get a cheap chef's knife for like $15. And I'll have new staff sharpen that thing down to a nub before they start doing customer knives and stuff like that, just to get the repetitions in, because it's really about doing it over and over and over again. My assistant manager, Adam, here, when we were holding classes, is a great instructor for our sharpening classes, and he tells everybody at the end of it, he's like, if you go home and you don't do this for 3 weeks, there was no point in you taking the class.
Yeah, you'll never remember.
You got to go home and you got to do it 2 or 3 times in the next 2 or 3 weeks so that you maintain that, because it's about creating muscle memory, right? I know that if I don't sharpen a knife for a while and I go to sharpen it, the first one's fine.
You got to do the first one. I always have to do the first one twice.
Yeah. And then by the time you get to the third or fourth, that muscle memory kicks in, and then all of a sudden it's easy again. But it's really about practice.
The 2 things that I can tell you right off the top, if you're like a brand new knife sharpener and I had to guess, the 2 things that you're doing wrong is you're pushing too hard and you're moving too quickly.
Yeah.
Because when you're going slow, you're sharpening a knife, your hands don't really move too much. All the motion is coming out of your shoulders and your chest, right? It's like, wah, 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 right? It's not, but if you start going too fast, your hands start wiggling and you don't keep the angles, right? So that's the best advice I can give is you're probably pushing too hard, so relax. You're just going to hurt your hands, and slow down. You gotta walk before you can run. You got to get good before you can get fast.
Yeah.
So here's a good one from our pal in Calgary. What do you think about Miyabi knives? Earlier, he had left a quest. There was more to that question, and it was, what do you think of Miyabi knives? Are they worth the price tag?
Yes, if you like really pretty knives. I think the Miyabi Birchwood set is one of the most visually stunning lines of knives that we've ever had in the store. I think they're gorgeous. Can you get a knife that's made out of the same steel that performs the same for less money? Yes. I think this line is being discontinued, but the old Co line, and that thing's a tank. I can't wreck that knife. So it's a pretty solid use knife in my house, because it's I need to smash a grilled cheese and sandwich in half. I'm just gonna beat up an apple, and I don't care if I'm being nice to it kind of knife. I think Miabis have a place. I think that a lot of them end up on magnets, looking very pretty and not getting used a lot. And then there's other ones where, I've had chefs that have had one that they use them forever because they hold an edge, especially the SG2 and then the ZDP ones, the black handled ones. They just stay sharp forever.
Yeah, the black ash ones. The Santoku is like $600, which sounds like a lot, but for the materials being used, so the ZDP steel, which is ultra hard, it's one of the harder steels that we can get a knife made out of. The fact that it's got that really cool nickel Damascus look and that purple burl wood in the handle, it's actually it's well priced based on what it is, if you kind of know the difference between those sorts of things.
I think if you needed one knife to survive in the wilderness for the rest of your life, it would be the black handled bread knife. I think you could cut a tree down with that thing.
Yeah,
that thing is amazing. But
Matt has asked over on Instagram, what advantages does a bunka have over a traditional Santoku? And I would say they make you feel cooler.
Yeah, they look
for the
cool.
most part. They look cool. A lot of the actual usage of both knives, there's a lot of overlap. A bunka, I guess if I had to pick one difference, the fact that the bunka has the pointier tip, it's going to be a little bit finer, meaning you could probably get a little bit, like the tip a little bit sharper, and it's good for like scoring, if you're like scoring a duck breast or something like that. But that tip is usually the first thing to break on a bunka. So something to think about. I'm going to cruise through. I got some catching up to do here. So I'm going to just like fly through.
Well, you need to. There's some guy named Kevin Kent telling bad jokes in the chat there. I think we can mute him.
Oh, he's probably he's just like flooding it.
Yeah.
If he mentions one thing about a knife, he's buying us dinner.
Sweet.
Yeah. So Knifewear has a very strict vacation policy. And I am the first to talk about this because I think I'm the first person in a long time to get slapped with this.
Might be the only one ever.
No, it happened to Kasumi too but I got it the worst, I think.
Yeah.
Because I think Kasumi asked a question and then like brought over a case of beer or something like that. So we are like Knifewear is dedicated to we have a lot of ideals that we work with about time off, living wages, so on and so forth. If you're on vacation, you are not to be in touch with work. So what happened to me was I was on vacation, I got an email, and I sent a text to somebody. I looked at my work email and got caught doing it. And then I had to go, I was in Toronto once with Kevin, and Kevin just looked at me and said, I'm cashing it in. I was like, oh, God damn it. Because what happens is if you get caught working on your vacation, you got to buy Kevin dinner. And he's not a cheap date. He is not a cheap date. And he got extra drunk just because I was paying. But then it was actually really funny because we ended up at this really cool bistro it was like super old school, like steak free, like nothing fancy about the place at all. The music was really loud. It just seemed like a really good neighborhood spot. And I don't know what it was about us, but they treated us so well. There were so many like extra drinks. We got like a little discount. I don't know how we pulled it off. How I got away with it so easy. But if Kevin brings up work stuff, he owes Chris and I dinner because we're both here. So I was asked what happened to the Brussels sprouts I was cooking the other day. I roasted them in the oven at a very high heat, tossed them in some olive oil with a couple whole cloves of garlic, roasted them in the oven. And I think we had them with some duck, I think is what we did. flying through. AJ, what Haruyuki Nikiri would you recommend? I'm open to stainless or carbon. My favorite Haruyuki line is the Kuma line. I'm probably recommending a knife that we don't have in stock right now, but I am a huge fan of that SRS 15 steel.
I'd say Shiso.
Shiso
is my favorite, but I love Algami Super.
Yeah. I've just gotten used to. I just have been liking the stainless steels a lot more recently, just because I'm lazy and I'm not the only one using the knives in the house. Even though I set out the decoy knife, I do find other knives dirty. I am just grateful that it is the stainless steel knives that people are reaching for. So Chris is voting Shiso. I'm voting Kuma or Yokuma, depending on what kind of handle you like. There is a new Haruyuki line, though. It's that Shinogi, the Haruyuki Shinogi. So
it's a ridiculously good deal.
Yeah.
203 bucks, I think. For
$203. I've got one here within reaching distance. I might drop a bunch of stuff because there's like cords hanging off of things. But there we go. It's not the flashiest car in the lot. But if we're talking performance, you're gonna have a hard time beating the value of this knife.
I accused the staff in Edmonton of putting the wrong price tag on it when I took it out of the case the first time it came in when I wasn't here.
Oh yeah,
I was like, this isn't right.
Yeah. And Nate is asking, what's a good? Guys, I'm trying to get through these as quick, so I'm about 10 minutes behind on questions. What's a good Nikiri that you would suggest I buy that's decently affordable? I think that one that we just mentioned, the Haruyuki Shinogi, Shinogi, $203. It's a really top-notch stainless steel called SRS 13. You're not paying for a lot of bells and whistles. And to be perfectly honest, some of my favorite knives at home are those just like super clean, nice polish. I like Damascus as much as the next guy. I like the rustic, hammered and black finishes. I like a little bit of everything. Sometimes I just like a real classy knife, Andrew, what grit size stones do I need after 1,000 grit? As you guys seem to have no stock in the 4,000. Yeah, that's a pain in the ass, Andrew, to be perfectly honest. So what happened was all of our stones got held up at the border in a big shipping container. And we were supposed to get another order since. But they just so we're a bit backstocked on the 4,000. If you waited a couple weeks, we should have some, I believe. There was an email from Naoto saying that we should have some more 4,000s. Looks like Chris is going to look for it. I can see the reflection in his glasses. But if you cannot wait on the Knifewear 4,000 grit, you could, from a 1,000, depends on what you're sharpening. 3,000 grit is a nice option. I can see, at least in Ottawa, I have a stack of the Shapton 4,000 grit stones. If you haven't used a Shapton stone, they are quite fun. They're a little bit thinner than everything else we have, and they're mounted on a plate of glass, so they do keep flat for quite a long time. They cut really well too, and that's kind of in the same price point. It's about $20 more, but they're a great stone. I use the higher grit one. A real crispy finish?
Yeah, it's that real. I like them on, I've been using the 10,000 on straight razors at Kent of Inglewood, and I really like it.
I opened a 16,000. I know. There was one day I was there, and I was like, I really want to use this 30. I had a razor of my own that I wanted to own. And I was like, I could really open up this 3,000 grit stone. I'd really, it'd be really beneficial if I could understand the difference. And I got scared, though. I didn't do it.
Yeah.
So, we got two knives that really stood out. So there's, today's been great. There's a lot of conversation going on in the comments. We've got some people over in Ireland kind of, shooting the breeze. We've also got some people talking about pinching, like pinch grips on their knives, whether they like it or they don't, or some knives that lend themselves a little bit better. I don't know. I'm really not trying to say this poorly, but Eldjotnar, two knives that really stood out for me using a pinch grip are the Fujiwara series. Yeah, the notch in a Fujiwara knife is almost like training wheels for it. Someone had mentioned the same about the Tojuro Ergos earlier. Yep. They almost don't feel comfortable if you don't hold them properly. And the Kramer Damascus knives. I haven't held on to one of those in a while.
They're very similar. They kind of have that little.
Yeah,
It's
like
not a full notch, but it's a kind of a scoop
yeah,
in the choil.
yeah, like the choil is. So that's what you call this part of the knife here, everyone. It's not a dirty thing like it sounds like, the choil. So right there is, so a lot of like Matsukage knives, for instance, are kind of ground in a little bit, a little concave there, as are the Fujiwaras obviously have that notch right in there, but the Kramers do too. That's a good point. I don't know. What do you think, Voog? The Voog is asking, what is this new feature? Just playing the question. I don't know. I'm a big fan. I think it's pretty fun. I think it makes us look professional.
Well, I can't seem to scroll back on the chat, so I like when you put it up because then I know what you're talking about.
Nice. I'm trying to like maintain some resemblance of order, but it's really hard. It's really hard.
This might be my first time on the show, but I've watched before. I understand that there is no order usually.
There's no order, but we're doing good. We actually talked about today's topic was about knives for children. We talked about it for a solid 15 minutes.
That's being generous.
Like 8 or 9 minutes. We talked about it. But people asked some questions.
They did.
So, my friend, the ATF is up in Sudbury. You know what you do, ATF? You sharpen a bunch of knives, and if you fuck any of them up, you put it in the mail and you send it to me and I'll fix it. I'll get you out of shit. Or I'll make Alex do it. I'm not going to make Alex do it, which is what you want anyways.
Yeah.
All right. Alex makes them look much prettier than I do. I'm very pragmatic. I just want them sharp. Yeah. I like every knife I buy along the way. I'm like, one day I'm going to screw this thing up. It's not going to look pretty like this anymore. Yeah. That's fine. So, Blank's got a good question. What do you think would be better for slicing brisket? Texan stereotype, Yanagiba or Tsujihiki? I kind of want a single bevel knife. Then buy a single bevel knife. Doesn't matter what I say.
Yeah.
You will find that using a single bevel knife, it does tend to pull a little bit when you're slicing. That's why when you're sitting at the sushi counter and a lot of the time you look, that's where the salmon is kind of cut a little bit wider. It's partially so that it lays over the rice a little bit nicer, but it's also what the knife wants to do. So if you want really straight up and down slices of your brisket, it's not that you can't do it, but you're going to have to keep that in your mind. You're going to have to account for it when you're slicing. You're going to have to
just gotta turn it a little bit.
Yeah, you just kind of like bring it in a touch. Again, not saying that it won't work, but it's just something that you've kind of got to have in your head. My brisket knife that I have is, Chris disappeared. Maybe he'll come back. I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what to do in the event that he did disappear. Oh, he came back. There he is. He came back. I don't know what happened. I got worried.
There you go. I know. I thought you'd hung up.
Look how easy it was. Look how easy it was. Everyone. It's a great new system. If we were doing this on Zoom, he'd be texting me like, invite me back. I don't know what to do. And I'd be like, I don't know how to do it either. But then you just showed up. So there we go. I use what I think is important when you're doing something like brisket is a long knife. A very long, sharp knife. So I use a 360 millimeter Moritaka Tsujihiki, which is a very big Tsuji. And it's pretty, the Moritaka stuff is a little bit thicker. So the weight of it kind of helps you pull through as well. So if you're shooting for those like kind of competition slices, like the width of a pencil, you don't want to saw too much. You want a nice long knife that's going to kind of fall through it with one swipe. That's that limits it down to, like, I've narrowed it down to one option for you, which may or may not fly. But if you want a Yanagiba, like, don't let me talk you out of it. A Yanagiba will do the work. It's what you want, right? Yeah. So get what you want. Otherwise, you'll end up with both, right? Like, how often?
Just get both.
Yeah. Well, how often do you see it in the store where someone, buys, like, they're between two knives, they make the responsible choice, and then they just come back in 2 months anyways, and they buy the other one. It happens every time. I've seen it. Like, you've worked here longer than me, but you see it happen often enough. And it's like, you know what? Like, if it comes down to it, like, yeah, sure, buy both. If you need one right now and you want one down there, you're not opposed to having more than one. Like, do whatever you want. You're an adult. I'm an adult. But if you gotta wait, like 2 weeks to have the perfect knife, well, wait. That's really the best thing you can do. Oh, well, here's a good question from Mika. If you're not an experienced sharpener and you want to practice on your lesser knives, how much time should you allot?
I find when you're brand new, if you're spending more than 20 to 30 minutes on a knife, you're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah, that's fair. That's
I was like when we do brand new folks in sharpening class, we can usually get through 2 knives as long as the class isn't too chatty in 2 hours. And that's, 15 or 20 minutes of one of us rambling on at the beginning, and then 20 or 40 minutes of sharpening the first one, and then 15 or 20 minutes of sharpening the second one. So if you've done a few of them,
yeah, I think you should be able to get it done in 30 minutes. And if you're, and I think I would back up what Chris is saying. If you're taking longer than that, you're probably not as efficient as you should be, or maybe you're just overdoing it. Because when I first started sharpening knives, like someone taught me in culinary school, and I had to completely forget that. Because when I was in culinary school, I was told, take this stone, pass your knife 100 times on this side, 100 times on that side, go to the next stone, repeat, repeat. Well, it turns out that most of the time, 5 times would have done it. 10 times would have done it. Didn't need those other sets. Like, it's once you kind of develop a bit of an understanding of the knives you have and the stones you have, like that was a very arbitrary set of instructions I was given by a person who didn't really understand much about sharpening, right? So you can kind of play with it a little bit. That's why, like, the class that we offer and the videos we do, we're focusing on this idea of looking for a burr, like this little lip of steel that you can't see, but you can feel it. Knowing what stones do what, polishing, that kind of thing. It all comes with practice, but
I would spend more time figuring out what a burr feels like than actually sharpening.
And Nate, what's a good Nakiri knife you suggest I buy? It's not overly, it depends on what you think is overly expensive, I guess, to start, Nate. Haruyuki Mugi, that's a great Nakiri for under $200. If you want to go that route, you still get kind of a funky finish.
Nice Kokuto. I think we've got some Kokuto in stock again. They're great because they're like $189, they're right around the $200 mark, and they're a great little knife.
TJ Ronan, TJ's usually good for some good questions. What's your opinion on your Kurosaki knives? Kurosaki's a pretty popular blacksmith right now.
I'm a fan. I'm trying to think what's on my magnet at home because it rotates, but there's at least 2 Kurosaki knives on there right now. Mostly because I spent a ridiculous amount of money on a Fujin Petty with one of those really cool blue Western handles 2 garage sales ago. Because my wife talked me into it. She saw it on the Instagram and said, "That's a Rockstar knife. We should have that." And so I bought it. She said, "How much was it?" I said, "Don't worry, we already bought it." But it's the SRS 15 version, and it is beautiful.
And
then I've got a Shimo that is one of my all-time favorite knives.
I don't think I own a knife from Kurosaki, but I always come close.
They're great.
Like, I've got no reason, like I've no reason against any of them. It's either like they go too fast during garage sale and I don't get a chance to buy it. Because the staff, I don't know if everyone knows this, a few of you I'm sure do at this point, but Knifewear staff aren't allowed to buy a knife during garage sale until the first day is over. So for me, I have to wait till 6 o'clock Eastern time to be able to buy a knife that's in my store, because we want to give all of our customers first crack at it, because otherwise people like Chris and myself would just cherry pick all the good shit. It doesn't take, like, we need to have these rules because we're a bunch of, like, hedonists who can't, like, if punishment wasn't associated, we would just do whatever we wanted all the time. It's quite sad.
Essentially, if there was no consequences.
ATF has got an interesting question. Do we, and I appreciate this question, and I want to highlight it just because of what they're. I'm going to put it up. Bloop. So, do we work on commission when you buy a knife online? You want to support the person who helped you out on the phone or via email? We are not at all. We are all very much on the same team. There have been times where, you know, if Chris will shoot me an email like, hey, so and so, you know, this guy is a little bit closer to you. Can you give him a hand? You know a little bit more about this particular thing than I do, or vice versa, whatever it is. Every single Knifewear employee is 100% on the exact same team. So this is something that's been coming up quite a bit in Ottawa recently because of the lockdown. A lot of people want to, like, oh, they just want to promote, like they just want to support local, that kind of thing. By buying a knife from knifewear.com, you are helping me out. Okay. There is no, we don't make commission. We are all on the same team. We're all paid a very, you know, we all got a nice, like, we get a good wage. We do profit sharing and things like that. So right across the board, we are taken care of. You don't need to, like, you know, you don't need to worry about that. If Alex helped you on help desk and you think that Alex did a great job, a way that you could help Alex out is, you know, make a review on Google or whatever the case may be and just name drop them. You know, if you want to help out the individual, you thought you got awesome service, reviews are always, like, you know, in the online world, reviews are very, very helpful and they go a long way for us, but you don't need to worry about, you know, someone snaking a sale off of
When you are writing a review, though, just remember Chris is spelled K-R-I-S if you're going to name drop it.
Always K-R-I-S.
Only in good reviews.
No, always. So someone here, Iceberg, is chirping Kevin about making French fries. Do you know about this, the French fries?
No, I think I missed that joke.
Yeah, okay. So what happened, for anyone who's kind of new, a little while ago, Kevin and I had said, oh, we're going to do in pure Japanese knife 101 fashion. We said we're going to have a theme, and then we never get to it. It's kind of like Matt Damon on Jimmy Kimmel, right? He just never gets on. So it's usually whatever it says in the title. You can expect about 45 seconds of conversation based on the title of the episode. So we had mentioned one day about making French fries because Kevin used to work at the Fat Duck in England, and they became very famous for these triple cooked fries where you cut the potato into nice big pieces. You cook them in water and you let them dry out, and then you blanch those, and then you fry them at a higher temperature, and they make really amazing French fries. It's very, very labor intensive. And Kevin said one time he was going to do that, and we've yet to do it. So much like I often take shit for the extra cut in half an onion, Kevin gets mentioned for
making fries or
having not made the French fries yet. Our buddy Eljotnar, I'm just picturing, like, I can't see the little picture, but I'm like picturing like some kind of like Norse warrior when I say that. When you put J's and things, like Visti's last, like Visti Care, like he is very much a Viking, you know. There was at the Calgary location a few years ago, there was a cleaver that he had, carbon steel, enameled, super light, beautiful knife. Don't remember where you said it came from. I can look into that if you like. Why don't you send me an email? So Chris, CHRIS, @knifewear.com. Send me that, and then when the time rolls around, I will harass Kevin about it, see if he remembers. Because we really don't want to cause him too much trouble. Dr. G trying to trick Kevin into talking about knives. Didn't work. Yeah, he can only bother these two jokers because he doesn't want to get into trouble. Nate is asking, what do we think about Delstrong knives? My dad has a knife from them, and it feels pretty heavy compared to my Miyabi Birchwood. I've sharpened a few. Have you sharpened any of these, Chris?
I ever have. Like, heard it mentioned, but I don't think I've ever had one in my hands.
Yeah, Delstrong, I believe they're like kind of a Kickstarter brand. Okay. They're marketed toward. They're like those Misen knives. I don't know if you've ever seen one of those. Yep. As far as I know, they're a factory-made knife using something very similar to molybdenum vanadium or a US-8. A little bit of a softer stainless steel. They sharpen up well enough. They don't keep it for very long. Sadly, I seem to the handful of people who have them tend to sharpen them quite a bit. The thing about heavy knives versus light knives, which is kind of why I bring it up, that's up to you. Some people like a heavy knife. Some people like a light knife. Heavy doesn't mean good. Heavy doesn't mean bad. One of my biggest pieces of advice I can give to someone when they're picking a knife out, pick it up with your eyes closed, and if it feels good, it's good for you.
Yeah.
Nothing drives me crazier, and I'm gonna throw this all out. I'm throwing it out there right now. Watching the knife teeter-totter game drives me up the wall, because the number of times me doing this with a knife does not, I get no information from this. And I am someone I've worked in a knife store for 6 years. I was a chef for 15 years prior to that. This skill has never once made it into my day-to-day. What you want to do, what you're trying to figure out, is by knowing the balance point of a knife, is knowing where the weight is going to be evenly distributed. And you can figure out a lot quicker by just holding on to the knife and determining whether or not it's comfortable. Some people say like, oh, it's front heavy, I don't like that. Doesn't mean it's bad, just means you don't like it. Oh, it's heavy in the back, I don't like that. Again, doesn't make it bad, just means it's not the knife for you. So that's what the benefit of having a store like Knifewear is. You can walk in, you can pick up a bunch. Now, you can't do that here in Ottawa right now, but you come in, you can pick up a dozen knives. If I've got an empty store and someone wanders in and says, I want to pick up a chef's knife, we're not starting with 5 knives. Like, we're going to start with 12 or 15, and we're going to just go through. And you would be surprised how fast one of our staff members can clue in to what you seem to like and start taking stuff away. And you don't even have to ask them. You don't even have to say, oh, I don't like this one, I like that one. By the time we're at 6 knives, I've got good odds on I know which one you're buying. Yeah. And cool, Chris would have taught me how to do a lot, like would have taught me the things to look at, right? So a lot of it is, it's personal preference, man. Like, don't get hung up on what the forums say. That knife's a piece of shit, it's front heavy. So what? Maybe you want it to be. If I'm cutting like a 50-pound bag of onions, I want that. I want a blade that's heavy, that's going to just go on its own. You just got to lift it up and then it goes, So it's just one of those things.
We have so many different knives is because it's so much of it is personal. It has nothing to do with what somebody told you about a knife. It has everything to do with how it feels in your hand.
Yeah, and that's all it is. Like, your own personal preferences mean so much more than someone's forum opinion, for what it's worth. Pick them up. That's why, like, I haven't bought a knife online in a very long time, and I understand people being hesitant about it. You want to be able to hold it, but something that we do, if you're unable to hold it, is we can take measurements for you. We can weigh the knife for you. Just send an email to hello@knifewear.com. And we'll get you we'll cover the bases. You want a picture of me holding onto a knife? Well, I'll take a picture of me holding onto a knife so you can see it. It's easy stuff for us. It's kind of ingrained.
I tell people all the time, because often they come in and they get a little overwhelmed by how many things they can pick up and touch and how many choices there are. And I say, you could literally close your eyes and point, and you're going to go home with something awesome. Because we don't really have any shitty ones.
That's yeah. We've done all the hard work. We sifted out all the shit.
Yeah, you're gonna get something good. And so, there's good enough and there's perfect. And you're gonna end up with good enough, guaranteed.
I put this one up because I've missed this question once already. And Sergio is like staying up. It's like they're in Bulgaria, Chris. It's like tomorrow or something by now. So like he's got to get to bed. So we got to answer his question for him. Fujiwara makes a 195 millimeter Uto. If you have a 240 and you have a 210, a 195 could fit in quite well. I think I have one. I'm gonna go and grab it.
Okay, well, my advice on the 195 is just get it. And I'm giving that advice to myself because every time I pick one up, I don't know why I haven't bought one. I only have one Denka, and it's the 150, and I love it. And I probably own 4 or 5 different 210s at this point, but I love the way the 195 feels. It just feels like a speedy version of a 210.
It's kind of like when Kevin talks about Takedas and how like everybody needs a Takeda and it needs to be a 240 Takeda Gyuto. A Denko, like a 195 from Fujiwara, is kind of like, it's like, I don't know.
It's a unicorn.
Like
it is.
Yeah. It's like the one to get from him. Like, you're not going to like, I'm trying to think of like, I'm trying to think of like some kind of quirky comparison, but I'm getting lost on it. You know? Let me think. I'll come up with something real ridiculous in a minute, and I'll just blurt it out, and everyone will be like, "What the hell is wrong with this thing?" Shermanator Masashi has a convex grind too. No, most blacksmiths do, to be perfectly honest with you, because they use very, very big wheels they're round. They're about 4 feet tall. I don't know, Chris, if you had the chance to use one when you went to Japan.
Oh, God, I was terrified to use one.
Yeah, I did use it though.
No, I did, but laying over that thing.
Yeah, and hung over.
Oh, always. I was in Japan.
You know what? I like having Meki in the room. He laughs at all my jokes. Just for the record, like I get all these like great little chuckles coming from the front. I love it. It's more rare for them to just be perfectly flat because those big wheels do put the ever so slight convex grind in. It's more of the kind of thing that when you go to hot rod the knife, it's just going to take you a little, and when I say hot rod, I mean thin out the knife. It's just going to take a little bit more effort, maybe with some finger stones or sandpaper to kind of polish it up a bit. If it was super, super noticeable, you might get the benefit of food, like kind of food releasing from the blade a little bit easier, but nothing to really worry about. Mount Everest is asking what's the best way to round off the choil if it feels a little too sharp or rough with a pinch grip. A little bit of sandpaper, you know. I would just get like this one here. Like, I guess if I was being picky, it feels a little bit rough in there. You could just get like some 1000 grit sandpaper. I almost got the tip of my finger off just now. You could get a little bit of sandpaper and just kind of buff it out there a little bit. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think a lot of the time when people ask questions like that, and Everest has been around for a bit in our videos. It's a honing rod. I think a lot of people are looking for like a fancy answer, but the thing I've learned about blacksmiths, they're not really that fancy.
No, pretty simple.
Yeah, like all the spring hammer is a giant sewing machine. Really, it's actually less complicated than a sewing machine because it's not like putting the needle through. Like it's not like keeping track of the thread. Yeah, it's pretty. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. What else we got here? We're doing pretty good. Oh, I heard Chris makes a dry brisket and Don Penny makes a great brisket. We'll just leave that up there for a bit. Don Penny is a god amongst men. Is essentially what you will learn by tuning into Japanese Knife 101. Is that as my dad has told me once or twice in the past, I am lower than whale shit. And Don Penny is a god amongst men.
That got a real Meki laugh. That was
a full-blown guffaw.
That was. Yeah. It was an explosion.
So let's just leave that there. I'm going to leave that up for a minute, just so everyone is aware of how amazing and you know what? Don Penny is a great guy. Don Penny came in here one day, wanted to try out a knife, trim up a little bit of beef. I let him use one of my knives. He gave me half of a beef tenderloin.
That's all right.
Just like that. Sure, it was on sale, he says. He brushes it under the rug. I don't go into a store with a fucking piece of meat to give them. No. Don Penny is better than I am at a lot of things, I think, just for the record. The Voog says those are fighting words. Nah, let him have it. I'm not going to argue. Yeah, he does say that someone has to bring up the brisket because Kevin's not here. Kevin does often. Yeah, Kevin does norm, and he doesn't know all the inside jokes. Referring to you, Chris. These are true.
I do not know all. I know some of them, and I know all the dad jokes, but I'm trying to refrain because Kevin decided to type them all into the chat. So
yeah, and he really bogged down my chat thing here. So now I'm like,
I missed half the stuff.
Yeah,
I'm glad you can scroll back.
Yeah. Oh, venison brisket. That'd be interesting. The Voog says he's hoping a hunter friend would have brought him a venison brisket. Now, one thing I'll say about venison, so there's like no fat on those friggin' things, and the fat that is there tastes terrible.
Yeah.
So you're gonna want to treat if you do get a venison brisket, you're not gonna want to cook it on the smoker. You're gonna want to braise it in some wine or something.
Boil that in a pot.
Yeah. Oh, Zareki blew us some kisses. What a nice guy. Once you realize how we're just a lot of discussion about sharpening, you guys are doing really well. You guys barely need us today. There's a lot of people talking about sharpening, and there's a lot of great conversation happening without us, which is I kind of like it. I like being able to talk about we're answering some questions. You guys are kind of going on your own route. I think it's a lot of fun. Can we explain why Kato-san does a bunch of Masakage knives, but also his own line? It's kind of like a chef. Someone like Mark McEwen, say what you will, is a bit of a Canadian celebrity chef, but owns more than one restaurant, right? And they've got different partnerships. I'm trying to think of like a local chef, like an Ottawa chef who might be like that, but I think that's really the way it is you know what? He puts his own name on some stuff. And then he said, like, okay, there's a company I know, a charcuterie company. I'm not going to say this because I don't know if this is like every information for everyone. They have their own stuff, but they also sell their own stuff under the Farm Boy label, which is a grocery store chain here in Ottawa. It's just a matter of kind of greater reach, right? Kato-san works by himself. He's got his Kato seniors around to offer some guidance. He has his own customers. Masakage knives are sold in North America. Like you don't buy a Masakage knife in Takaful. You don't go to the store and buy a Masakage knife. Masakage are knives made in Japan and sold throughout the rest of the world. It's not like a domestic product. I don't know if I'm supposed to actually say this or not. I'm afraid I'm pulling the curtain back too far, but that's essentially the difference, right? There's really no difference between them. Nothing major, anyways, aside from like a Masakage Koishi is always a super blue carbon steel with a Karochi Tsuchime stainless on the outside with a cherry and black Paka octagonal handle. But that's the major reason. It's just that like Masakage knives are things that he makes and sells outside of Japan. And then, Kato is like the kind of the Kintaro knives that he makes under his own brand is him kind of trying out different things and different products and so on, right?
It's just it gives them a chance to play a little bit more too, right? Because Masakage knives are very specific to what they are, how they look, and they're exactly the same lines all the time. Whereas if he puts it under his own name, he can do a few different things. You get different looks. That's why you get a bunch of different Kurosaki looks too.
Yeah, and Kurosaki loves screwing around, trying out new finishes. Right. We got the Voog asking if we should talk about Alex's dreamy arms. His arms are very big. Alex does often. He likes to pick up heavy things and put them down for fun, whereas I prefer to. I do nerd stuff, and Alex does jock stuff. It's kind of the biggest. If I stopped doing all the nerdy shit and started doing all the jock stuff, I'd be like an Anglo version of Alex. I'm taller than Alex, though, for the record.
Really? I didn't know that.
By a fair amount. Yeah. Just as Alex has many suitors. Trevor is asking when life returns to normal, and it will. I appreciate the optimism. Any plans for knife maker visits to the stores? Yes. We were last year. 2020 was potentially going to have a Fujiwara visit, potentially going to have a Tomo visit. I
know Masashi loves to come.
Yeah, Masashi wants to come. Is that what you said?
Well, he loves coming, so I've heard that he wants to come again. Yeah.
No, it's It's a lot of fun for them because the thing about these guys, right? we do a really good job here at Knifewear, and like kind of the culture built up around the stores from our customers and the community and whatnot. We see these blacksmiths as talented artisans and all into rock stars. We collect their knives like people collect hockey cards, right? They don't really clue into that. They don't really know that that's how we do it. So when they show up, like I know when we had, like a couple summers ago, we had Shibata-san, and he gets it because he travels quite a bit. But we had Kato and Ikeda, who were two of the guys who like they don't really get like they don't have like Kurosaki's on Instagram all the time, and like he's kind of done a better job of getting out there. But these other two guys showed up. I couldn't have everybody. I think the Voog was here. You couldn't have everybody in the store. They wouldn't fit. I had a crowd of, 25, 30 people around the front window just to watch Shiba sharpen a knife. Like, they don't understand, right? So, like, they don't know until they get here how we feel about what they do. And I think once kind of word gets around a little bit, they're like, you got to go to this Canada place, man. They'll treat you like God. Like, you won't have to buy a drink the whole time you're there.
Yeah, it was nuts when they were up here. Like, you couldn't put another person in the store. We had people out front, like you said, looking through the window, and then our back alley was just full of people because we did a forging demo there.
Mm. Oh, our French chef in Ireland, La Dalance, says Dalstrong is all about advertising. They were lying about being made out of VG10. People complained, and then they kind of scaled back and said it was AUS 10. Ooh. Scandalous. The Voog is asking about the Kurosaki Sasame. How does the steel perform? More like carbon steel or stainless? Is it an upgrade to the STS worth the price? I think so. He's using a newer type of steel called Cobalt Special, which in my experience, I haven't had to sharpen very many of them because the steel's we've only been getting knives made out of that steel for the last 2 or 3 years. And in my experience, I can get it a little bit sharper than I can the other VG10, but it's less prone to chipping. Like if you were going to put, and I don't know, I want you to weigh in, Chris. Masakage Kumo versus a Sasame. I think, because the Kumos are nuts for VG10, I think I'm going to get the Sasame just as sharp, but it's less likely to chip.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The staff here love the Sasame. Like, I don't think there's a staff member that doesn't have one. And so they get talked up a lot. And so we've put them in a lot of kitchens around the city, and you never see them come back. And you don't get the little chips. I find like VG10, when it's really thin on the edge, sometimes you get those little baby chips, especially if you're working in a kitchen with the hard.
Should I scrape my board?
Exactly.
Should I scrape my board chip? Yeah.
I don't see. I've honestly, the chips that I've seen in the Sasame have all been an oh my god, what'd you do? It's not it's somebody did something real bad and they're big.
Yeah,
It's like no, you can't chop a femur in half with that thing.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I like that. This guy's got all the good goss. According to La Delance, Japanese steel is not allowed to be exported to China anymore. So you should never trust when they say it's imported from Japan for a Chinese factory. Good to know. Good to know. I had always kind of assumed that they wouldn't do that because there's a lot of they're pretty protective of that stuff. So, but then here's a good one. While I look for some other stuff, you're going to talk about this.
Oh, 3 different types of knives.
Yeah.
Petty. You took it away. Now nobody knows what I'm talking about.
Oh shit! I didn't mean to. There we go.
For me, it's a big Gyuto, a Petty, and a Nakiri. Those 3 knives are. If I had to break my kit down to 3 pieces, that's what it would be, and it would be a 240. It would be a tall Nakiri. I love the Masakage Nakiris because of how tall they are. I use a Yuki pretty regularly, and probably like a 130, 135 mil Petty. Something that I can choke up on if I need it to be smaller, but that's long enough if I need to do kind of some fine detail work, like if I'm trimming silver skin or something like that. Those 3 knives are going to be the essential ones for me.
Yeah. I think I would agree. What size petty did you say?
Like 135-ish.
Yeah. Yeah. So if I had to pick what 3 out of the knives I own, I would say I would go with my 240 Gyuto. I'd probably use my new Masashi. That would be my new one. And then I would say my Denka Nakiri, so 165 Nakiri.
Yeah.
And then because the Fujiwara Nakiris are like a lot like a Masakage Nakiri, they're a little bit taller. Because I got big fat hands. So like, unless like like this Murata, for instance, this 210 Murata, it's not big enough for me.
Yeah.
Like I need more. That's why I like a 240 so much. So I would say my 240, my Masashi or my Kagura, my Denka Nakiri, and then I kind of wish. So I have a Hap 40 Mugen Petty,
Nice.
but it's a 150.
Yeah.
I wish for this conversation, if it was a 120, that would be the perfect set for me. Except each of those knives, if I drop them, they'll explode.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I don't really have a workhorse in there, but I don't really have one anyways, I don't think. Look, I actually caught up. I caught up to this. So Meki was there saying when Dom Penny swims in the ocean, it's the sharks the sharks are the ones that get inside the cage. Meki is supposed to be working right now.
Nice. Yeah, and now he's commenting. Throw something at him.
Don't have to. I just got to do this. Watch this look. You want to talk about like kids and kitchen knives? Here's some parenting for you.
Yeah, I know that look.
Yeah. I got that look from the fire department.
Yeah, you did.
You know that look? That's just like, how fucking dumb are you?
The problem is that you didn't have any food ready for them. No. Because it was 2 summers ago, we were doing a Conroe demonstration in our back alley, because that's what we like to do in Edmonton, one Thursday night, and we just got the new panel from the alarm company that had the smoke detector on it, and the wind shifted. I had the back door open, and then the next thing you know, there was a fire truck full of handsome firefighters out front, and I just happened to have the wings ready when they got there, so I just fed them, and they hung around for a while. They weren't mad at me at all.
Yeah, this guy was real mad at me. You also don't look like a delinquent like I do.
Adam was there, so there was delinquents around.
Oh, okay, good. Adam was representing.
He brings up our delinquent quota.
Okay, here's a good knife question. So let's answer this question, and then I got a little bit of housekeeping I want to do.
Okay.
Because we've been at this for like an hour and 45 minutes, which is great. We'll keep going. But we're gonna answer this question, and then Nathan asked me to talk about some stuff, and I've got like responsibility.
It's your requirements.
Yeah. This is like the things I gotta say so we can actually call it work.
Right.
What would be the ideal size if you want it to be the main knife to work with? Now, knowing that you are a professional chef, my vote is 240, unless you're little, like unless like a 240 like feels like a canoe paddle in your hand, I think a 240 is the way to go. And if not that, go for a 210, because you can use it for a bit of carving. You can do the majority of your veg prep with it. You can fillet a fish with it. I don't like a Gyuto for filleting a fish, but if it's what I got, I can do it, and I can do a good job.
I would agree 100%, unless you have a terrible prep space. I worked a cold side in a restaurant where all I got was one of those 6-inch boards in front of my roll top cooler, and then I used a 180 Gyuto because it was the only thing.
I was gonna say maybe your 150. Your 150 that you've got.
180 was probably too long, but that's all I had at the time. Yeah. So I would say 40 because I use that for everything in the kitchen.
And then, so Nate is kind of following up with, if you had to use one knife for the rest of your life, what would it be? Like best all around and can do everything. I'm going to stick with my 240 Gyuto. When I first got out, so Nate was talking about going to culinary school and that kind of thing. Here's the big secret, that cooks don't make a lot of money. Big secret. But you're expected to have fancy stuff to do your job. So what you're gonna do is that first paycheck or that first cut, the first thing you're gonna buy is a 240 millimeter Gyuto. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna learn that if you're chopping stuff, you're gonna hold it here. If you need a paring knife, you're gonna hold it here. And then you're gonna use that for peeling. And I thought I was alone in that for a very long time until I had breakfast at Fujiwara-san's house. And I watched Ms. Fujiwara take a 270 Mabaroshi, and she peeled me a Nashi pear and made me look like a chump.
Yeah.
You know, like she took a 270 and just, that was one of the best meals I ever had, actually, was breakfast at Fujiwara's house. And that wasn't like, you know, we can talk about circumstance, like there's more to a meal than what you eat, right? Every chef or restaurant professional will tell you that. Ambiance is important. Everything is important. I was with people who I was having a lot of fun with. There was Visti, there was Kevin, Fujiwara was there, Shiba was there, Fujiwara's wife was there. The food we had, though, was like braised daikon and dashi. There was like chicken wings for breakfast. There's the thing I like about Japanese food is there's not that, like, I don't, look, I'm fat, but I don't like sweets. That's the thing, right? I'm this size because I'll eat 3 pounds of brisket to myself. So what I really liked about Japanese food, and I hate cereal. This is something that, yeah, you guys will like, oh, the comments will go crazy. I don't drink milk. I think it's gross. I worked on a dairy farm when I was a kid. Okay. I'll cook with milk. I'll put milk, like if I'm making craft dinner for my kids, yeah, I'll use milk. But if I'm not going to sit down and drink a glass of milk, that's gross to me. Like that's really gross. So I like that there's no milk for breakfast in Japan, and there's no sweets. There's no, like, I don't want to sit down and eat a piece of cake for breakfast. Like that's what a muffin is to me. You know, I don't want that. I want a fucking steak or something. You know, like I get in shit at home because I'll just eat last night's leftovers for breakfast, and everyone thinks it's gross, and I don't want to smell curry first thing in the morning. It's like, go away. It's food. I'm gonna eat. You know, like go away. Leave me alone. So breakfast in Japan is rice, is miso soup. It's a bit of smoked fish, maybe. Salad. It's perfect. It's just lunch, but early.
Especially if you've had a good time the night before. All that stuff is so much better than cereal.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I don't care. Like, you know what? Normally I say, like, because I learned this one, Chris, doing these videos. I say, don't at me. That means like don't harass me. But you can at me all you want if you want to talk about breakfast and drinking milk. I'll come right back at you. I think all that stuff's gross.
I will say my wife made cinnamon buns this weekend, and I had cinnamon buns for breakfast today, and I'm not going to complain about that.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. It's not for me. That I can approve of that. A nice cup of coffee for sure. It's just I don't reach. I'm also the guy, like, if we I know you would partake, but if we went out for dinner, I'm not going to order dessert. I'm going to order a cheese plate.
100%.
Or I'm going to order another. I've done it before. I just order another app. You know. But if you go out for dinner with Alex,
having tacos for dessert.
Oh yeah, Alex must have something sweet after dinner. It's kind of interesting. My grandfather was like that too. Always had like a cookie or something. Didn't matter what he ate. So my grandfather, even after my grandmother died, my grandfather he would always like bake cookies. So he'd have cook. I think it was partly because my grandmother was gone and it was something that she would do. So he kept doing it, but he always had like cookies or squares or something in the fridge or freezer, so we could have something sweet after dinner. It's kind of neat. It was a nice, I don't know, it's a nice memory.
I'm a sucker for cookies. I will eat 1,000 cookies.
Yeah. I rarely crave them, but I'll still eat them.
They're there. They will not.
That rant was mostly about breakfast. I don't hate sweets. I just don't want them for breakfast.
It's not your first choice.
It's not my preference. No, I'll eat cold pizza every day. I'll order a bigger pizza just so I can have cold pizza the next morning.
The harder question, Chris, is what won't you eat?
What won't I eat? You know what? I did this like silly Facebook kind of thing last night, like 1 point for everything you won't eat. How picky of an eater are you? Because I live in a house of very picky eaters. I had 0 points. Someone got up to 26. Like it was, yeah. So, oh, Robin, don't be so dirty. Yeah, it's not that kind of show. Holy moly.
It's the internet.
Yeah, Robin's a troublemaker. They've shown up before. So here, let me do some of the housekeeping because I think I answered the question. Or did I just rant? Let me go back.
I don't even remember what it was. You took it
How
off.
nice are Fujiwara's personal knives? You know what? What I noticed was Fujiwara didn't cook anything, and his wife had a handful of Wa-handled Mabaroshis. That's what I remember. I remember the 270 Gyuto, clear as day. And I think she also had there was a Mabaroshi Santoku maybe on the wall, and a Petty is what I saw her use. But the only knife that I'm absolutely certain of is the 270 Gyuto, because I've told that story a few times. So, well, here, let's do a little bit of a wrap up. We still got time for a couple more if you need them. Japanese Knife 101. We had Chris with us today. Chris is the manager up in Edmonton. He's going to join us again on Thursday, where we're going to talk about. It's going to be, you know what? Japanese Knife 101 is Knifewear's Ask Me Anything. We do it a couple times a week. If you can't wait for Tuesday, Thursday, or Saturday afternoon, you can always send an email to hello@knifewear.com. That's going to get your message onto what we call the help desk, but it's everyone takes a look at hello@knifewear.com. So if you've sent me an email, I'm not getting back to you quite so fast. Send it, you could have sent it to hello@knifewear.com, and then kind of one of many staff members would be able to would answer your questions, help you pick out a knife. Hey, where's my package? Well, I don't know where your package is, so let's ask hello@knifewear.com. Okay. But that's where you go for a fast answer. If you need help picking out a knife, you can't wait till one of the days we're doing one of these videos. Someone will give you some very excellent help on the help desk as well. We've also got, we have a whole other, we don't talk about it very much on these videos. We have a whole other brand called Kent of Inglewood. Kent of Inglewood is all about, I always say, that's all the other sharp stuff. Knifewear is about kitchen knives. It's about time spent in the kitchen, really sharp kitchen knives. Kent of Inglewood is everything else that is sharp. You've got axes, you got outdoor knives, there's folding knives. The bulk of it is kind of grooming and shaving, right? Safety razors, straight razors, shaving brushes, all of that kind of stuff. I bring it up because we've actually got a sale coming up in there. We've got some really amazing fragrances, which is it's what fancy people call cologne or perfume. You call them fragrances.
This is one of my favorites. The Florist Oud.
Yeah.
Stinky old kitchen guys like me.
Oh, is that honey oud?
Yeah.
Yeah, I wear the leather oud. So here's the thing, guys. I look like a garbage heap, but I don't smell like a garbage heap.
Yeah, me too.
Because I'm much more popular at home when I smell like leather and oud.
Oh, when I smell like honey oud, that means I'm looking for forgiveness.
Good move. Good move. So Kent of Inglewood always does the fragrance sale the 1st of February right up to Valentine's Day. So it's 15% off all fragrances. Chris and I were just talking about a very classic brand called Florist out of England. There's another one that I really like called Persons of Interest, comes out of Toronto, Canadian made stuff. What else? What else do we have? Check and Speak, another British brand, Castle Forbes from Scotland.
I'm very excited about. They just came out with a sample pack, and I can't remember how many different fragrances they've come out with now, but there's like 8 or 10, and you get a little bit of all of them in the sample pack, and that'll be on sale as well.
That'd be cool. And then, well, here I'm going to answer a couple of these little questions. So Kent of Inglewood's got a fragrance sale coming up. It's worth checking out if you like smelling good. Really, that's the long and short of it. Ken of Inglewood is a lot of fun, especially for a lot of you guys who are asking us questions about sharpening and whatnot. When you get to the point where you feel like you're really good at sharpening a knife, you need to sharpen 5 straight razors. And once you've sharpened those 5 straight razors and you've done a good job on them, every knife that you've sharpened after that will be at least 3 times as good. There's just something in the brain that goes tick, and you're like, whoa, shit, can get sharper? That's nuts. So that's just, I don't know, something to look for. So yeah, because ATF was saying that he is going to send their Tears of Sard for sharpening. So you can actually, if you'd like, you can mail that to the Ottawa shop. Send me an email if you need the address. Make sure you put a note in it as to who owns the razor, because I had one show up like 2 weeks ago. I don't know if you heard about this, Chris. I had a razor show up a couple weeks ago in the store. It was just a razor with a return address. Didn't even have a name on it. So I had to write them a letter that said, hey, I've received a razor with this return address, and sorry to be a pain, but could you get in touch with me? It was,
Yeah. It used to be the hub for mail-in knife sharpening, and that would happen on occasion.
Yeah.
At least you have an address.
Adrian is asking about the pocket knife that I own. I did purchase it at Kent of Inglewood. I can't remember what it's called. It is made by a company called Macusta, and it's like $130. Yeah, I got the Crane one. This is the second knife like this I've owned, Chris, because I've lost one riding my motorcycle one day.
Oh yeah, that's not fun.
Yeah, so that's where I generally lose. I lose a lot of pocket knives, and then they turn up. So I've got a drawer full of pocket knives.
Yeah, the Macusta ones are awesome.
Yeah.
I got 2 here.
They're just fancy enough, and they're not made for poking humans.
No, this one's made for opening boxes.
Yeah.
This is a very simple ebony handled one.
So,
AG10.
You have premium wood. Can't you offer some great value saya? It would be great. You should check out the Masakage sayas. They're $49 a pop, and they cover the majority of the standard shapes. But the thing about a saya is that it can be a bit nerve-wracking to buy a saya without having your knife in hand, because we do like to try them on the knife before we ship them out. So if you know what kind of knife if you know what knife you have, it's something that we sell. I could try it on. We could at least find one that fits the store's knife, and then give you a little bit of a, I don't know, give you a bit of a heads up as to whether or not we can expect it to fit. But that's something that we could help you out with. The ones that we have are made with Magnolia, matches a lot of the handles. It's not too expensive. Nate is asking, when will we talk to somebody at the Calgary store? Kevin, normally, he's in Calgary. He's not at the Calgary store. The Calgary store is very, very busy.
Very busy.
And they can't generally spare the person for this. But if you have any questions, Nate, you wanted to direct them to them, you could just send an email to just, hello@knifewear.com. I want to talk to someone from the Calgary store. Here's a list of questions that I've got. Someone will get back to you, no problem. But Kevin, who generally does these videos with me, is located in Calgary, but doesn't necessarily work in the shop itself. Sorry. The ATF is another sharpening question. Is it unwise to sharpen razors and knives on the same stones? I do it all the time in the store. People get mad at me.
Good at keeping your stones flat, because a little bit not flat is okay on a knife. A little bit not flat on a razor is going to show up a lot faster.
You'll do a bad job, and you won't know why. But yeah, keep your stones flat, and you'll be fine. When I took over, so I don't know, I've never really complained about this to Chris, I don't think. But when I first took over as manager of this store, I found 2 sets of stones, razor stones and knife stones. And it drove me up the goddamn wall. I got so mad because it was so wasteful. So, oh, that's a good question. High grit natural stones, copas for razors. Yeah, we have the Uhira natural stone. I've used that on my Iwasaki before. To be honest, when it comes to razors, I like the synthetic stones because I know what I'm working on. And I just kind of, it's touching my face. I'm scraping it across my face. So I kind of want to know where I'm at. If you've got a natural stone and you've messed around with it and it feels awesome, go for it. If you're into sharpening and you just need an excuse to buy a natural stone, do it up. Just depends on the.
Yeah, I've got a Ohira here at our Kent of Inglewood, and I'm not a huge fan of it for straight razors, but then I have a natural stone that Iwasaki-san, who makes some pretty nice straight razors, gave us as a gift. I don't know what it is, but it's magic. So I think natural stones, it really depends on the stone.
Yeah. All of the names and the labels that are put on a natural stone it's kind of like you can't really, like, they're not, pardon the pun, but they're not set in stone. It's more of a set of guidelines, right? Like, it'll tell you what you should and shouldn't expect, but they are a natural product, right? So you might get a weird little patch in them or something like that.
When I visited Iwasaki, he had a bunch of random stones that he just picked up off the ground and then tried them to see what worked out. And some of them he liked, and some of them he was like, no, they just go in a pile.
Robin has a good question about rehandling a knife. The handle he wants to use has an opening that is 4.5 millimeters thick, and the tang is 2.8 millimeters thick. Do you think I should slide some spacers of some sort in there too? I've done that before, actually, where people have been like, I had to put a handle back on a knife. You ever have this happen, Chris? Like, someone's knife, like the handle came off, they just jammed it back on, and then they just didn't really do a great job. Like, it was always off and on, and the hole gets too big. I've done that. I've shaved down a little piece of popsicle stick and jammed it in the side, and then I put some glue over the top, and no one ever knew it was in there.
If you can set it, you can run wax into it too. If you put enough hot wax in it and then glue over top of it. But that's a pretty big gap if you're like a 2 millimeter gap. So yeah, doing a toothpick or something like in there just to kind of wedge it would not be a bad idea.
Yep. Is it appropriate? Peter is asking us if it's appropriate to store a Chinese cleaver vertically up in a holder on a small countertop. Do you mean like the knife sitting like that on a holder? I would be careful. You don't want that exposed edge to be out. Someone's likely to hurt themselves. It might not happen right away, but it'll happen one day.
Yeah.
You know what? Just a cover. If it's going to sit on the counter, just make sure the blade is covered so you're safe and it's safe. No, you just don't want to knock it off or fall on it or something. The craziest shit happens in kitchens. So
it's where something pops out of your hand and you reach out to grab it.
Yeah, Robin, toothpick or popsicle stick, whatever's going to slip in there. I'm almost done my housekeeping.
Oh, what else do we worry about?
Okay, well, this is super fast recap. Okay, Japanese Knife 101, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Saturdays. Okay, it's always, well, these days we're doing it at 4 o'clock Eastern time, 2 o'clock Mountain time. Then we've got Owen and Francis, like the Vancouver crew, do a sharpening demonstration on Thursday evenings.
They're a lot of fun.
They're a lot of fun. I watched a couple minutes of it last week, and some guy who I remember from when I was doing the sharpening classes with Kasumi, he seemed to like what Kasumi had to say quite a bit, told him, why can't you stop singing? Why don't you put the young lady who actually knows what she's talking about on? Which I thought was great, because they would have had to have seen that, and then they just. Now, if it was me, we would have talked about it.
Oh yeah,
we would have. But I don't.
Owen would have just kept singing, I'm sure, because he could sing me to sleep every night. The man has a beautiful voice.
Yeah. So, so the folks out in Vancouver take care of a sharpening class. That's going to be at 6 Pacific time, which is 7 Mountain time and 9 Eastern. So it is a little bit later, but the good thing about that class is that you could actually follow along. If you had a run-of-the-mill Gyuto, You had a 210 and a 1000. You could follow along and ask questions while you were working. So it's worth checking out. And then we've got Nauto's Nerd Hour on Friday afternoons, which is Nauto gets really nerdy about the sharpening. So all the stuff where I say, well, I don't really know too much about that, like the conversation about natural stones, that has kind of perked up a little bit. I'm sad to say I've shared all I know about natural stones in that short amount of time. But Nauto, like that's what Nauto lives and breathes. Like that's like 90% of Nauto's job.
Of sharpening knowledge.
Yeah, like 90% of Nauto's job is to learn new ways to sharpen, teach the rest of us how to do it. This is how, this is how this stone's going to react with that steel and this steel. I like sharpening this steel on these stones. If you want to get super nerdy, have at it with him because he loves it. He loves it. I will eventually fall asleep if we talk about like microscope level of sharpening for too long. I can keep up for a little bit, but like I said before, I became a cook because being a doctor was not an option to me. Not the best at thinking really hard. So, and then the big one that I wanted to talk about, and it was mentioned earlier, Adrian had made a crack about, well, you're not going to be able to do that on $24. So every Knifewear and Kent of Inglewood supports a local charity through their sharpening. Chris, up in Edmonton, you guys, Edmonton and Calgary deal with the Alberta Autism Services.
Yep.
I work with a charity called Operation Come Home. Vancouver works with something called Soul Food. So my charity, Operation Come Home, deals with at-risk youth. So really, in layman's terms, homeless kids. And really, we focus on, it's an employment-based charity or organization where it takes that teach a man to fish to like, and kind of that's the goal, right? They want to help these kids. Their mission statement is to prevent homeless youth from becoming homeless adults. And the way they go about it is by teaching them how to have a job. A lot of these kids are not actually employable by any reasonable standard, right? They've got everyone's got their baggage. These kids tend to have a little bit more, and there's usually things that get in the way from them holding a job. What Operation Come Home does is they specialize in building what's called a social enterprise, which is a business that is built just to employ, right? So they've got a couple. We work with one called FoodWorks. So in an effort to raise some funds and some awareness for Operation Come Home this year, we would normally do what we call the 24-hour challenge, where I've done it in years past, where you pledge to spend 24 hours straight outdoors while in the middle of January. So I slept on the corner of Bank and Gloucester one year, and it sucked. I got really cold. It's nowhere near what these kids go through on a daily basis. Like, I still had my credit card in my pocket. I would go into the bar every 2 or 3 hours and have a beer and take my boots off to warm up my feet. Like, I am not pretending that I've lived a day in the life, but we can't do that this year because of social distancing. So what we're doing instead is called the $24 challenge. $24 is the amount of money that one of these kids has if they're in a social program, they're in community housing. The average amount of money they have after they've bought their, subsidized bus pass, they've had the money collected for their rent, they've paid whatever bills they have, they've got about $24 left over. And that is what they've got to spend on food. So Alex, myself, and Kevin have all committed to living off of $24 for one whole week. So that's going to start on February 1st. Now, Kevin wrote a blog. There's a blog post up on our website about the $24 challenge. And if you would like to donate, you can donate either to myself and Alex or Kevin. We set up 2 separate ones. I don't know why. The fun thing is, though, is that Kevin has, in that blog post, Kevin has pledged that if he screws up and spends more than $24, he will make a donation in the amount of everything that he has already raised. So Kevin's currently I'm at $1,300. Kevin's raised over $1,800. So if Kevin screws up, he's got to put in 1,800 of his own bucks. So don't donate to me. Don't donate to the Alex and Lordy fund. Donate to the Kevin fund, because if he screws up, that's double for them, right? It all goes to the same place, helps out the same people. So by all means, if you can donate, it is much appreciated. I personally appreciate it quite a bit. I work with this charity a lot in my spare time. But if you can't, if you could help spread the word, maybe mention it to a couple people that you know. That's, every little bit helps. So that's what's going on here. So on Sunday, you can keep an eye out, probably on Instagram or Facebook Live. Alex and I are going to go do our grocery shopping and see what 24 bucks each gets us. I anticipate eating a lot of beans and rice and drinking a lot of tap water. But yeah, whatever support you can throw our way, it is much appreciated. Word of mouth is just as valuable as a cash donation. So,
and I'll be texting Kevin food pictures all week long, just so that he does screw up and have to double the money.
If you've got Kevin on Twitter, send him lots of food pics. If you see him in person, you can try to trick him into taking a drink of something that he didn't pay for. Whatever you can do to sabotage Kevin and raise some more money for Operation Come Home, I would. You know what? If you like, I'll buy the coffee later. Send me an email. I'll send you $3. I don't care.
I think it would happen if I just ordered something to show up at his house.
We need to get someone on the inside to catch him.
I think that can be arranged.
Yeah. His kids are probably, we can bring his kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, well, you know what? And you know what? Robin and Blank Blank have both said that they have gone through harder times in life here. I'm glad to hear that things are better for you. I trust that if you're telling us that, things are better. And I'm very happy to support this group of people. Like I said, I put a lot of my spare time into helping. We all know, you know what? We all know people or have been people who needed a hand along the way. And I'm a firm believer there's nothing wrong with asking for a hand if you need one. So I think that's as great of a place as any to kind of call it a day.
Yeah. I want to say thanks for having me. If nobody liked me, you only have to put up with me at least one more time.
Just one more time, yeah. And then you got to watch Nathan make kimchi on Saturday. That'll be fun.
I'm glad there's no smell-o-vision on that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially, I'm sure Nathan makes the funkiest kimchi. He probably makes it extra gross.
Yeah,
I like kimchi, but I don't like smelling it. I don't want it in my house. I'll buy it, and then I get a real tight jar and keep it.
Hide it back in the fridge.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Chris. That was a lot of fun. I have no idea how to turn this off now because we've got a different.
I have a button that says leave, so I'm going to click the button that says leave.
One that says finish.
All right. Well, I'll talk to you again soon. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.